For my next episode, I'm going to be talking about this chain of events. If anyone watches this is good at finding shit online and finding shit about people and court records and whatnot, look up the name Neal Javier Reaves. Neal is my cousin, and he ultimately fucked my life up, which I will be telling the story here in a second. But he is unfortunately related to me. I don't talk to most of my family because they are all ultimately retarded. Many of them are criminals. Neal spent most of his adult life in and out of jail, and he tries to tell this fake story now that he's changed and he's a better man and he's learned from his mistakes. I personally lived with the guy for a short amount of time a couple years back, and I can tell you firsthand he has not changed one bit. He is still a criminal. The only difference now is that he has gotten much better at hiding his crimes. He's had so much experience with the law that he now knows newer and improved methods on how to avoid the law. That's it. Nothing about him has changed. He's still a retarded fag. Anyway, recently he left me this voicemail.
Yeah, Adonis. Hey, it doesn't matter what's going on between us. You have to fucking act right with fucking us. So act right. So, you don't have to call me. Call her. The one thing that I always told you to do. So act right.
So yeah, that attitude, oh, act right, acting like he controls my life, that's one of the money reasons why I cut ties with him. And the person that he's talking about is my grandmother, who I recently just went out of my way to go see her. So it's ironic how he's calling me, telling me that I need to call her and act right, acting like I don't talk to her, because I do. Now, this is where we're going to talk about the chain of reactions. The chain of reactions for me that set my life downhill was a fucking tree, believe it or not. So this is back in 2023. I was still living with my parents at the time, who I now no longer talk to. But there was a hurricane that hit Tallahassee, and a tree hit our apartment and caved in the ceiling, and we had to evacuate. Now, my apartment complex offered to pay for a hotel, said that they were going to get it fixed in a weekend because the damage really wasn't all that. Like, yeah, it was bad, it was unlivable, but it wasn't nothing that they couldn't fix in a reasonable amount of time. And my parents were like, oh, well, maybe we'll just take this opportunity to move. They kicked me out. They told me, I was 19 at the time. They told me, we're kicking you out. You have to go. Like, you can't live with us anymore. They basically threw it at me like, you're an adult. You can make your own decisions. You need to go find a place to go. And I understood that I was an adult, and I was actively looking for a place to live anyway. But it was very hard for me to get my own place because my parents kept taking my money from me. So it was very difficult for me to afford to move out of my parents' place. But I was actively looking for a solution, looking for an excuse to leave them because I did not enjoy their company at all. And they were well aware of that. Now, I understand the whole thing of moving out on your own because you're an adult and you need to leave your parents' place. I agree with that. I think we should all move away from our parents, the sooner the better, because it forces us to grow up. What I don't agree with is them taking all my money and then giving me less than a week to figure out what the fuck I was going to do or where the fuck I was going to live at. My cousin stepped in, and I ended up living with her in Jacksonville temporarily while I was trying to figure out my living situation. Saved up quite a bit of money because I didn't have my parents taking it all from me. And then her brother, Neal, he works as an electrician now because it's the only job he can get. But he makes a pretty decent amount of money doing it, and he travels the country doing it. And for years, he had been trying to convince me to do the same thing. I just hadn't because I had other shit going on in my life at the time. But now was a perfect opportunity because I needed a place to live and I needed money. And around this time, Nova called me and asked if I wanted to sign a lease with them. And I said, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. So I signed the contract with Nova. And then I called Neal and I told him I was going to take him up on his offer. The goal was, because I had a good 8 to 9 months before Nova was even open, before my lease began. The plan was to basically make a bunch of money while working with him and then save up that money and then come back to Tallahassee. At the time, I was cool with everybody and I had established a pretty decent life here. I had a pretty good friend group. When I was forced to leave, they were all I could think about. I wanted to get back to them. I wanted to hang out with them again. I may have been earning good money as an electrician, but I didn't actually like my job. I didn't like being in the sun all day long. People there were exceptionally rude just for the sake of being rude. The manager was full of himself and a total cunt, and there was a lot of things that I didn't like about it. Nobody at the job liked the job at all. They were just there because they were getting paid a lot. So y'all get context, I was earning $1,500 a week. $1,500 a week, and they'll hire anybody, and people do it because it pays. People are not doing it because they like it. People are doing it because it pays. But that money meant that I had to say goodbye to my freedom. I could no longer stay up at night and sleep during the day, which is what I typically do. I had to be up by latest 6 a.m., and then I had to be in bed by latest 9 p.m. to get enough sleep so that I could have enough energy for the next day. And we only got one day off a week. I had no free time to myself. I had no time to talk to my friends. I had no time to work on the podcast. And I just said to myself, I'm going to power through it because, I'm going to get this money. And then when August comes and it's time for me to move into Nova in August, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to have so much money that I'm going to be able to have enough for my rent at Nova and for months afterwards. It was a pretty solid plan, and I still believe that it could have worked out had Neal not gone in the way of things. So for starters, we were not working in Tennessee. We were living in Tennessee with Neal's dad, who was not present at the time, and his then girlfriend. And then every morning we were getting up extra early to drive all the way to Arkansas. And then we would work there, and then we would drive all the way back. There was a lot of details that Neal left out, and that's what Neal and both his sister. And that's when I realized that they had straight up lied to me or left a lot of things out that they should not have left out. Neal really wanted me to go with him to his company, and his sister really wanted me to leave because she got a new boyfriend. They were willing to do whatever it took. They were happy that I was convinced to go, and they were not gonna let anything convince me otherwise. They were trying to manipulate my way of thinking. I'm working with Neal, right? And everything's fine at first. And I'm telling him what my goals are and what I plan to do. And he's like, don't do that. He's like, you need to stay out of Tallahassee. Tallahassee's a party school. There's nothing good for you there. He's like, stay out of Florida entirely because it's just a bunch of crackheads. What you do is you just make a bunch of money and then you take vacations like once or twice a year. And you can, maybe you can go see them for Thanksgiving and you can go see your family for Christmas, something like that. I didn't like that concept at all. I didn't like having nothing to do other than work and sleep. I couldn't even watch a TV show or a movie when I got off of work. I barely had time to sleep, and then I woke up to go work for some friend who was much richer than we would ever be. I did not like that concept at all. And I told him, I'm like, listen, I'm an adult, you're an adult, please respect my decision. But I've made it clear to you this is something that's very temporary. I do not want to live in Tennessee or in Arkansas because I don't like living in the country. I do not want to spend the rest of my life working in the hot, sweaty sun with a bunch of cock infested scumbags. I have a goal. That goal was Nova. And I'm doing this to get to that goal. And I understand where you're coming from, but you need to respect my decision. Well, he didn't respect my decision and he took my life into his own hands. Eventually, we moved out of Tennessee and got a little place in Arkansas that was down the street from the job site. Neal's behavior became increasingly more violent as time progressed because he kept trying to tell me what to do with my life and what to do, controlling everything from like who I talked to who my friends were to what I did with my life. And it got to the point where he's like, "You're not getting that apartment, you're staying here." And I'm like, dude, I'm a grown man. You cannot make me do anything. Like, I'm here to work with you. Like, I am your coworker and also your roommate. But I am 19 years old. You cannot make me do anything I don't want to do. And he did not like the fact that he had no control over me. And there was one day in the highway when we were driving down the highway. He was driving, I was watching a movie on my phone because I didn't have time to watch it at home on a TV screen. I was holding my phone sideways like this, watching Netflix, watching whatever. He's trying to preach to me that I need to hold my phone down here because holding it up here is going to damage my eyes. I pay him no mind. This motherfucker snatches the phone out of my hand, rolls down the car window on the highway, and tries to toss my phone out the window but I luckily was able to grab it. And I'm like, "What the fuck, dude?" And he's like, "Well, since you don't want to listen to me, this is what's gonna happen." And he's like, "You're in my car, these are my rules. My rules is you gotta hold your phone away from your face." I'm like, what kind of logic is that? If I'm in your car, right, you can have rules like no eating in the car. You can't blast or metal music in your car. Shit like that, I understand. But telling me, oh, you can't hold your phone close to your face? No, it's my phone, my business. I'll hold it all the way up here if I fucking want to. The fuck? And he's like, "You don't need a phone out here anyway. You should only be focused on work. You can survive without it." And I'm like, "Dude, you can't take my shit and throw it out the window." And he's like, "Well, what are you going to do about it anyway?" He's like, "I'm going to beat your ass." He's like, "Ain't nobody here to save you. Ain't no grandma or dad or anyone here to save you. You're in the middle of nowhere." And that's when I realized how fucked I was because I was in the middle of nowhere with someone who I thought I could trust, but the man was absolutely out of control. And I called my family, and his sister tried to talk some sense into him, but it did absolutely nothing. And I mean, what are words gonna do when you're all the way in Arkansas and your family's all the way in Florida? After that interactions and multiple other interactions that we had, I realized the kind of person he was, and I realized I wanted absolutely nothing to do with him. And I realized that he could be potentially dangerous because this man was acting violently. He was making threats towards me on a regular basis. There was even a situation where him and his stepmom, I guess you could say, because at the time she was dating his father, basically they got into an argument over something, and she called the cops on him because he got up in her face. Now, I've heard both sides of the stories from him and from her. She told me, I forget what they told me what the argument was about, but I forget what the argument was about. But they were in an argument, and he got up in her face like he was gonna fight her or attack her, and she got scared, and she called the police. Neal has also told me the story about them getting into a fight and him getting up in her face and the police being called. And he regularly referred to her as a cunt and many other bad terms because she called the police on him when he didn't do anything illegal. And technically speaking, I guess it's not illegal to get up in someone's face, although I Listen, if you invade my personal space, I'm punching you in the jaw. That's a topic for another podcast. But when I heard the story, I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you? Like, that is an old lady. You don't get up in an old lady's face. Okay? If you were having an argument with a man and two men get up in each other's faces like they're about to fight, that's understandable. And dude, I get into arguments all the time with people of all different ages, genders, ethnicities, you name it. I've argued pretty much everyone who stepped foot into my life at least once. I very rarely get up in someone's face. And it really depends on the level of the threat. If it's another guy threatening me, I will get up in his face. Now, if it's a girl, the likelihood of me getting up in her face is pretty much slim to none. Like, she has to do something really, really, really extreme for me to get up in her face. An old lady? Absolutely not. There is zero excuse whatsoever why you need to be getting up in her personal space like that. Even if she's fucking threatening to kill you, unless she's got a fucking gun in her hand, there is absolutely no reason why you yourself should feel threatened by an old lady. I mean, there's no excuse for him. Like, even when he told his side of the story, and mind you, I heard his side of the story before I heard her side of the story, and I was like, absolutely not. This is completely and utterly wrong. That is not how you treat people. But there was another time when we went to Walmart together, and some old lady, once again with the old ladies, I was grabbing a shopping cart, and this old lady grabbed it from me and took off with it. And I was kind of like, that was rude, but whatever. I just grabbed another cart and carried on about my business. And Neal snapped at me, and he was like, you should have stood up for yourself. You should have told her that's not right. I'm like, dude, you need to pick and choose your battles. There's a million other shopping carts here. I'm not going to start a screaming match or get up in her face, as probably he would have done, over a fucking shopping cart. Yeah, what she did was absolutely rude, but at the end of the day, I'm going to grab my shopping cart, grab my shit, and go home. She's not even my neighbor. What she does, if she wants to be a cunt, she can be a cunt. It has nothing to do with me. So then we're leaving the parking lot, and there's some random lady sitting on her truck, and Neal starts to curse her out, calling her a bitch, calling her a cunt, and I'm like, what did she do to you? He's like, oh, she's looking at me funny. Lady didn't even know that we were there until he started cursing her out. I'm like, yeah, this guy is out of control. I need to get the fuck out of here. So I'm trying to think of a plan to get out of here. The next day, so he's rambling on about some nonsense, trying to preach to me about shit I don't care about. I'm like, all right, dude, I'm going to go take a shower. I go to my room to get my stuff. I get a phone call, so I pick up the phone, and I'm talking to someone. Maybe 20 minutes later, I'm finally ready to take a shower. I'm headed to the bathroom. Neal sees me, so he gets up and hurries to the bathroom, and he takes a shower first. I'm like, all right, dick move, but whatever. When he gets out, I finally go, and I'm about to go into the shower, and he gets up in my face and confronts me, and he's like, you're a liar, you're not a man of your word. He's like, when you said you were going to take a shower, and then you didn't take a shower. I'm like, dude, I was gonna, but I got distracted by something. And he's like, well, in life, you shouldn't get distracted by anything. I'm like, dude, it's our one day off. I am not in a rush to do anything. The shower can wait 20 minutes while I talk on the phone to my friend that I don't talk to anymore because I'm stuck working with you. And dude, this guy straight up fucking starts threatening me. He says he's gonna bash my head and said he's gonna beat me up if I don't do what he says. I full on shoved him out of the bathroom, slammed the door, locked the door, took a shower, spent the rest of my time in my room. Let me put this into simple terms for you. After we almost fought and he threatened to bash in my head, I felt fully threatened by this man. I put the nightstand up against my door so that he could not enter my room because he had this habit of bursting into my room whenever he felt like it. No respect whatsoever. And I kept a kitchen knife on that nightstand. In case he did burst into the room, I would then use the knife to stab him to death for my own safety. He did try to bust in a couple times, but couldn't get past the nightstand. And for about 2-3 days, I was peeing in literal water bottles because I feared that if I exited my room just to use the bathroom or to eat or do anything, he would attack me. So I called my job and quit my job because I wasn't going to go to work with him. I wasn't going to work where he was working at. And I devised a plan to get the fuck out of there. He went to work. First thing I did was call my parents and tell them everything that happened. They said that they were going to drive up to Arkansas to come and get me because they valued my safety over everything. After that, I called the police and I told them what went down. However, because there was no proof of anything, there was no proof. And when you're in the heat of battle, you're not necessarily thinking, this is a potential crime. Let me go get my camera and record this or gather some evidence to take to the police. When you're in the heat of moment, you're not thinking that. I wasn't thinking that, so ultimately, because there was no evidence whatsoever, they're like, we can call him right now and he could deny all of this and it'll be my word versus his word. There's nothing that could be done about it. So my only option was to get the fuck out of there. So I'm thinking I'm fine, right? Because my parents are going to come get me. They said they were going to be there tomorrow morning. They're like, just stay in your room, just hang on. They're like, we're going to come get you, because they basically shared the same concern I did, that this guy was going to fucking kill me. Morning comes, Neal leaves for work. They call me. They're like, oh, we're not going to come get you. They're like, what? I'm like, what? They're like, we're not going to come get you because it's a little far, and we haven't driven the car in a while. Maybe we should stop by the dealership to get a checkup, make sure it's in good driving condition, and we really want to drive that far. And they're like, we can't come get you unless you pay us $700 plus gas plus a trip to get the car looked at. Once again, trying to take my money. I'm like, I just quit my job. I don't have $700 to give you. And your son is in danger. The money should be the last thing you're concerned about. And they're like, well, if you don't want to give us the money, then you're just going to have to stay there and live it out. So that's another thing to add to the book of reasons why I no longer talk to my parents. Because you literally said that you were going to come and get me out of the situation. You said that you didn't care about anything else and that my safety was more important. And then the very next day you're calling, you're like, oh yeah, give us $700 or we're going to let you get killed by this man. So I'm over here thinking, how the fuck do I get out of this situation? I don't have a car, so I can't drive out of here, and I can't rent a car because I'm 19. Most places won't rent to you unless you're 21. I'm like, all right, I'm going to Uber out of here. We're in the middle of the country. There is no Uber. There's no Lyft. You can't even get DoorDash out here. It's in the middle of nowhere. Just 3 houses and a big steel construction site. Nothing else for miles. So I called a taxi all the way from Tennessee and paid her hundreds of dollars to drive all the way to Arkansas to come get me and drive me down to Tennessee. Once I got to Tennessee, I then used what little money I had left to get a Greyhound bus to go from Tennessee to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where my grandmother lives. I didn't stay in Jacksonville because my cousin didn't want me there because she was focused on her new boyfriend, like a teenage girl. And I didn't go back to Tallahassee because I really didn't want to live with my parents. I was willing to because I had nowhere else to go, but they didn't want me living with them. Ironically, they said that we all had to move out because of the hurricane damage. They kicked me out, got the place repaired, and moved right back in like nothing ever happened. They were just using the hurricane as an excuse to get rid of me. And they were not going to let me move back in with them. So that was out of the question. So I went to Fort Lauderdale to stay with my grandmother. And my grandmother, as much as I love her, she does drive me crazy. She has this constant need for attention, and she always wanted attention from me. and she wouldn't let me focus on anything else. So it was a pretty rough couple of months living with her. But I ultimately reached my goal of moving back to Tallahassee, and I lived at Urban Enclave first. Then when that lease was over, I moved into Nova. I got a couple jobs, made some money, moved into Nova. Despite all the bullshit, despite the plan going completely off the rails, I made it happen. I saw my goal through, moved into Nova Tallahassee on August 15th, 2024. When I was finally in my new apartment, my friend helped me move in. I cut off my parents before then because of the stuff that I just mentioned and some other shit that they pulled over the years. But I finally moved into Nova, and I had cut off Neal, I had cut off my parents. All the toxic people from my life were gone, or so I thought. And while there were definitely some things I would have changed so that, while it was a pretty ugly fight, the point was I won. I did exactly what I said I was going to do. Well, we all know how things worked out at Nova. Now, why am I telling this story now after so much time? Well, I really don't like to talk about my personal life, but at the end of the day, the whole reason why I even got into podcasting is because I needed a way to fight back. And I used the podcast as a method to use it to expose my enemies. Because my enemies have never been good people. Like, you look at the people that I fought, and it's never someone who's noble and humble and is a good person. It's always someone who's either a horrible person or they did shit things and they're trying to cover it up. So my podcast may be entertaining, but at the end of the day, it is ultimately a weapon. And so I'm using this as a weapon to expose Neal Javier Reaves. Now, recently, I took a trip to Fort Lauderdale to see my grandmother and some other people for Thanksgiving. Saw my grandmother for the first time in months, went to her house, had a Thanksgiving meal with the other side of my family, came back up here maybe a day or two after I got back to Tallahassee. I got that phone call from Neal. And he called me from an unknown number because I have his number blocked. But he's had multiple phone numbers over the years. It is definitely not the first time that he's tried to contact me before. He also sent me a text back in January of 2025, basically telling me to stop running my grandmother into poverty. Basically, my grandmother decided to send me money because she's nice and she does that sometimes. And when he found out, he wrongly assumed that I was begging her for it, and he sent me a text saying that, I need to stop asking her for money because she's a retired old lady and I'm gonna run her into poverty. I'm like, bro, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So he leaves me this voicemail, right? So mind you, he calls me, I pick up the phone and I say, who's this? And he goes, the fuck you mean, who's this? And I just hung up. I get weird calls all the time because during the Annabelle case, my phone number was also leaked and I got random people calling me and harassing me. Most noticeably, Carly and her friends. Not my sister Carly, but Carly Cropsey, Mason Weimer, Kylie Stomler, and Cassidy Ryder. We'll get into that story in a little bit. So I just get home, right? And I'm thinking, whatever, it's some random who got my phone number, like, I'll just block the number. Didn't think much of it. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, that voice though, I recognize that voice. And so I looked up the number, and the number online matched Neal's, online record showed it as Neal's phone number. And then I got that voicemail because here's the thing, even if you're blocked, you can still leave a voicemail. And he left me that voicemail, which I have played, where he's saying that, like, oh, it doesn't matter what's going on between us. You need to act right and you need to call your grandmother. I'm like, what is this dude talking about? Like, you don't know shit. I just got back from seeing my grandmother. Genuinely, what are you talking about? I didn't even call her. I went all the way down south to go see her in person. And I was down there for like a week. Like, genuinely, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Like, this guy's an idiot. And also, I do not like the way he was talking to me at all. Like, oh, you need to act right. Act right. Doesn't matter what's going on between us. Act right. I'm like, there it is. That same attitude, that same, I get to control your life, I get to tell you what to do, and then you have to be my little bitch and do absolutely everything I say. And I'm like, yeah, this is not the main reason I cut you off. It was more so the whole threatening to bash my head in and leaving me locked in a room for days and whatnot, but that's part of the reason why I cut you off. So I got pissed. I got so pissed off. What did I do? Call the cops. Once again, led to nothing. So basically, I called TPD. I told them what happened, and I explained to them that I cut this guy off and made it very clear that I wanted nothing to do with him ever again. And I said I wanted to take some sort of action against him because this is harassment. You know, I've made it clear I want nothing to do with you. I have blocked your number. I've blocked all your social medias, all forms of contact with you. You then proceed to call me on blocked numbers and leave me voicemails, or use different numbers to try to contact me after I made it clear I want nothing to do with you. That is harassment. And people might go, oh, well, Adonis is a crybaby now, crying to the cops about some harassment. I'm like, I'm not scared or anything. I was just pissed. I was fucking pissed the fuck off, and I needed to do something about it. So the cops worked with me very quickly. They gave me a case number. They took down the report. They were like, listen, what you can do is you can go to the court office and go to the courthouse and you can ask them for a restraining order. So for everyone wondering why I've been in the courthouse so much lately, it's because of that. But I went to the courthouse, told them what was going on, filed for a restraining order. The judge denied it twice and wouldn't give me an exact reason. And I was like, why is this getting denied? Like, I literally have proof. I have voice messages. I have text from this man. I'm like, I literally have a previous case with him all the way in Arkansas. Where like I know he wasn't convicted, but they still have the report. And the judge just kept denying it. Luckily, I haven't heard from Neal since then. But I'm just like, you know what pisses me off? Is that if it was like, say if it was a girl who went to the cops and said, like, say I was harassing her, even if I didn't know the girl, I'm sure the judge would have been like, oh yeah, we'll get a restraining order for you right away. Society doesn't care about men. We are worthless pawns to the system. Society cares about women. Even women have no value, even though they offer absolutely nothing whatsoever. Society cares more about women, but they don't give a shit about men. That's why cops come to my door when a woman calls the police and claims that I'm harassing her or that I've assaulted her. With no evidence whatsoever, they'll come to my house and they'll ask me questions and they'll get their handcuffs ready and I'll be like, I don't even know this girl. I honestly do question, which this is a sign that the legal system has improved, but I do question why I have not been to jail. Because just over a year ago, if a man was simply accused of raping a girl, he would have been thrown in prison without a fair trial. Or any trial. He'd be lucky if he even got a hearing. But when I call the cops with an actual problem, which in this case it was not the police officer's fault, it was the judge's fault. But whatever, I've had plenty of legal problems this past year. Whenever I have an actual problem that's actually a crime, they just don't care. They don't care. They take their sweet time if they put any time into it at all. And it genuinely infuriates me when they do this. It's just like a slap in the face. Like, it could not be any more obvious that like, y'all just don't give a fuck about men. Like, women constantly complain like, oh, women, we have it so hard. I'm like, you do understand how easy it is to be a woman? You just take pictures of your naked body and make millions of dollars on OnlyFans. You post bikini pics on your Instagrams and get thousands upon millions of saves and likes and comments and whatnot. You go to a bar and guys give you drinks. Like, you go to a bar and every guy's trying to buy you drinks. Like, you find the right guy. I was pointing out there, you can find a guy who will take you out to get fast food to get you that purse. You go on a date, who pays for you? The man does. You're basically getting a free meal. But as men, we have to fight for every inch of what's ours. And then when we finally claim what's ours, there's always someone trying to take it from us. They try to take our homes, our friends, our girl, our fucking sanity. Society's always attacking men, and they're trying to glorify women as these precious angels. They are not angels at all. If anything, they are the ultimate demons and ultimate conduits of complete and utter evil. Because they use their pretty faces and attractive looks to con you into thinking that they're good people who are setting out to do good. And then they take advantage of you, they lie to you, they sabotage your life, your relationships, your friendships. I can't even begin to feel like I genuinely can't remember the last time I met a girl that was actually a decently good human being. Back to Carly Cropsey and her crew. There's a lot of them. Let's see. The main ones are